When Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, arrived in Medina, he encountered a thriving Jewish community, leading to a complex and often misunderstood relationship. We explore the historical accounts of their initial alliance and the theological disagreements that caused a dramatic and history-altering fracture. Unveiling Jewish perspectives on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, a historical insight. When we think about the historical relationship between Jews and Muslims, our minds often jump straight to conflict. It's a story that feels carved in stone, a narrative defined by centuries of political tension and religious disagreement. But what if I told you that when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, first came to the city of Medina, one of his first major acts was to create a pact of mutual defense and religious freedom with the city's powerful Jewish tribes? They were, for a time, a single community. This is the story of that alliance and the theological and political earthquake that shattered it, changing history forever. To really get what happened, we need to go back before the beginning. A thriving Jewish community in Arabia. Long before the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born, the Arabian Peninsula was home to a surprisingly influential Jewish population. In the oasis city of Yathrib, which we now know as Medina, Jewish tribes weren't just a minority, they were a core part of the city's social, economic, and military life. Their ancestors had settled there centuries earlier, some fleeing Roman persecution in the land of Israel. Over generations, they became deeply woven into the fabric of Arabian life. They were skilled farmers who cornered the market on date palm cultivation. They were artisans, weaponsmiths, and jewelers. The three biggest tribes, the Banu Kainuka, the Banu Nadir, and the Banu Qurayza, controlled major markets and fortresses, giving them serious political clout. But their identity wasn't just about money or power. It was deeply religious. They were keepers of monotheism in a land dominated by pagan idols. A key part of their belief was waiting for a Messiah, a prophetic figure who would kick off a new era. Now, while mainstream Jewish expectation was for a Messiah from their own people, some more obscure apocalyptic texts from the period, like the Secrets of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, spoke of a non-Jewish prophet who would rise up, help redeem the Jews from oppression, and play a role in the Messianic age. It was into this world, one of deep-seated Jewish culture and Messianic hope, that a new figure arrived in the year 622 CE. The arrival and the pact. When the Prophet Muhammad and his followers made their historic migration, or hijra, from Mecca to Yathrib, they weren't stepping into a quiet town. They were entering a complex city of rival Arab clans and powerful Jewish tribes. Muhammad, fleeing persecution himself, arrived as both an arbitrator and a leader, and one of his first, most revolutionary moves was to draft a document known today as the Constitution of Medina. This wasn't just a simple treaty. Many historians see it as one of the world's earliest written constitutions, a blueprint for a multi-religious state. The document established a new kind of community, the Ummah, a political body bound not by blood, but by agreement. It famously declared, the Jews have their religion and the Muslims have theirs. It guaranteed religious freedom, mutual defense, and a justice system for everyone. Under this constitution, the Jewish tribes and the Muslims of Medina were a single community, obligated to defend each other from any outside attack. Those early days in Medina were filled with this spirit of cooperation. Muhammad's initial teachings even drew from Jewish tradition. He respected the people of the book, and at first told his followers to pray facing Jerusalem, the holy city of the Jews. That shared belief in one God created a natural bridge, and this support wasn't just talk. Some Jews genuinely saw Muhammad as a monotheistic reformer, a figure like the prophets from the Bible. The most incredible example of this comes from Islamic tradition. According to the story, Rabbi Mukhairiq was a wealthy and respected leader. When the pagan army from Mecca attacked Medina in the Battle of Uhud, the assault happened to fall on a Saturday, the Jewish Sabbath. While most Jewish tribes stayed out of it, citing the Sabbath rule against warfare unless in direct self-defense, Rabbi Mukhairiq saw it differently. He argued that defending a fellow monotheist against idolaters was a sacred duty that overrode the Sabbath rest. As the traditional story goes, he rallied his people saying, "You have no Sabbath," and charged into battle alongside Muhammad. Before he left, he made a will. If he died, his entire fortune was to go to Muhammad. Rabbi Mukhairiq was killed in battle that day, and when a wounded Muhammad heard the news, he reportedly declared he was the best of Jews. Mukhairiq's inheritance was used to create the very first waqf, or charitable endowment, in Islamic history, which helped support the poor of Medina for years. This powerful story shows just how deep that initial alliance could be, a moment where a Jewish rabbi died defending a man he saw as a prophet of the one God. So, how did it all go so wrong? How did we get from that moment of brotherhood to a complete and devastating break? Well, the alliance, which was built on shared monotheism and political convenience, soon started to crack under the pressure of theology and shifting power. The heart of the problem was the question of prophethood. While some individual Jews were supportive, the established Jewish community as a whole pushed back against Muhammad's claims. They tested his knowledge, asking him questions about the Torah, and while they were often impressed with his familiarity with their stories, they ultimately rejected his status as a prophet. From a traditional Jewish point of view, the age of prophecy had closed centuries earlier with the prophets of the Hebrew Bible. They were waiting for a Messiah from the line of David, and Muhammad, an Arab descendant of Ishmael, just didn't fit the bill. As the Jewish community held back its official recognition, Muhammad's own revelations started to change. He grew more critical, accusing some Jews of distorting their scriptures. The Quran began to highlight Abraham's lineage not just through Isaac, but through Ishmael, recasting Abraham as the patriarch of a pure monotheism that was neither Jewish nor Christian. This theological split was mirrored by a political one. Muhammad changed the direction of prayer, the Qibla, from Jerusalem to the Kaaba in Mecca. Friday was made the main day of prayer, setting it apart from the Jewish Sabbath. These changes were a clear declaration of independence for the new faith. They carved out a unique religious identity for Islam, downplaying its Jewish influences and signaling a final break. The common ground they once shared was disappearing fast, and the political landscape of Medina was about to turn ugly. The final breakdown wasn't a single event, but a series of tragic and violent clashes with the three major Jewish tribes. Each episode is incredibly complex, and the historical accounts from Islamic sources often clash with later Jewish perspectives. The first tribe to be expelled was the Banu Qainuqa, mostly merchants and artisans. They were accused of breaking the constitution after a marketplace squabble led to a death. Muhammad laid siege to their fortress, and after 15 days they surrendered. They were exiled from the city, their property confiscated. Next up were the Banu Nadir. This tribe was accused of plotting to assassinate Muhammad. After a siege, they were also expelled from Medina, eventually moving to the northern oasis of Khaybar, where they continued to organize against the Muslims. The last and tragic chapter is the story of the Banu Qurayza. During the Battle of the Trench, when a massive army of Meccans and their allies besieged Medina, the Banu Qurayza were accused of treason, of trying to negotiate with the enemy in violation of their pact. After the siege failed, the Muslim forces turned their attention to the Banu Qurayza. The tribe surrendered and agreed to let their fate be decided by an arbitrator, Sa'd ibn Mu'az, who had been their ally before Islam. His judgment was devastatingly harsh. All the men of the tribe were to be executed, and the women and children taken as slaves. This brutal event, detailed in Islamic sources, marked the end of Jewish political power in Medina. These events are some of the most controversial in early Islamic history. Islamic tradition sees them as justified punishments for political betrayal and breaking a sacred treaty. From a Jewish historical viewpoint, these actions look like a violent political purge, a systematic removal of economic and military rivals who had also refused to accept Muhammad's religious mission. The dream of a pluralistic community, once written into the Constitution of Medina, had ended in bloodshed and exile. This is a history filled with pain and complexity, and it's so important to approach it with nuance. If you're finding this exploration valuable, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to join us as we continue to unpack these critical and often misunderstood historical moments. Conclusion: a legacy of complexity. The story of Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Jews of Medina isn't a simple tale of heroes and villains. It's a messy, human saga of alliance, belief, politics, and power. It started with a radical vision of a united community and ended in a bitter split that has echoed for centuries. But even that violent fracture isn't the whole story of Jewish perspectives on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In the centuries that followed, Jewish thinkers kept grappling with his legacy. 12th century Rabbi Maimonides, while privately calling Muhammad, peace be upon him, a false prophet, wrote in his legal works that Islam was part of a divine plan to spread pure monotheism and rid the world of idolatry, preparing the way for the true Jewish Messiah. His contemporary, Nathanael al-Fayyumi of Yemen, went even further, calling Muhammad a true prophet sent specifically to the Arabs. In modern times, some liberal Jewish thinkers have looked back at Muhammad as a powerful monotheistic reformer, seeing his critique of legalism and his focus on ethics as admirable, even if he isn't considered a prophet within Judaism. So what's the takeaway? The relationship between early Islam and the Jewish people wasn't one single thing. It had moments of incredible alliance, like the sacrifice of Rabbi Mukhairek, and moments of devastating conflict. It inspired a huge spectrum of Jewish thought, from total rejection to conditional acceptance. To understand this history, we have to move past simple stories and embrace the uncomfortable, complex, and deeply human journey of two faiths that grew from the same Abrahamic soil and whose paths split in the crucible of history.